As you can see in the title, this video is going to be about why recruiters are lying to you about the tech job market. The reason I'm going to make this video is because on a daily basis, I'm helping professionals within the tech industry land roles and interviews a lot quicker than they would have by themselves. And one common theme that I'm noticing is a lot of them have been misled and told lies with regards to what is needed to actually land a role in tech as of 2026. And they've kind of been led astray, and this has affected how they show up in their job applications and their perspectives of what they actually need to do to get the results that they want. One thing that you need to understand is when you're working with recruiters is they're not working for you, and they never were. So a lot of the times when you work with a recruiter, their interests and your interests are rarely actually aligned. So what that means is that they essentially just want to fill the jobs that they have as quickly as possible. Anything outside of that, they don't really care. They don't really care about your personal career history, your career narrative, or even how your reputation might be affected by certain applications. And it's something that you have to bear in mind when dealing with recruiters. So how recruiters actually work is recruiters, especially if they're independent recruiters, they only get paid once they actually place you in a role. So you can imagine the kind of mentality that that's going to put them in, that they only get paid once they fill the jobs that they're currently working on. So that means everything else is going to be on the back burner, and that includes the things that are within your best interests and your own career narrative and career story, and you personally being able to get a job as quickly as possible. So if it's an independent recruiter, how I believe it works, because I used to be a recruiter myself, is, for example, that recruiter would negotiate with a certain company that if they were able to place you in a role, they'd get a fee. A lot of the times it would be something like 20% of your annual salary. So, for example, if a recruiter goes and places you in a role and you're getting paid £80,000 a year, they might stand to make £16,000 from the company, because 20% of 80,000 is 16,000. And that's essentially how it works. But then if they don't place you, they don't get paid anything. So it puts them in a mentality where you can imagine the only thing on their mind is being able to fill the jobs that they've currently got. And anything outside of that is irrelevant, because essentially they just want to put food on the table. So you have to bear that in mind when dealing with recruiters. So if your CV doesn't match what's on their desk right now, you go into a database and you seldom will ever hear from them again. It's a sad reality of how it actually works when you work with recruiters. So you just have to bear that in mind, and it will help to almost temper your expectations when working with recruiters. And it gets even worse. There are some naughty recruiters that will essentially send your CVs to companies without telling you. And they do this so that they can, again, get that introductory fee and collect the fee. And this can actually hurt you when you apply to these companies later, because what happens is you apply to these companies, your name flags up. John, who was your recruiter before, has been sending you off to 10, 15, 20 companies. And as such, when you apply by yourself, it actually limits the chances that you have of being able to land interviews on your own back. And then you end up creating dependencies on these recruiters. So recruiters, most of them are not bad people. Some of them are a little bit selfish. But what you need to understand is their incentives are not aligned with yours. They're in survival mode, where they're just like, let me fill these jobs as soon as possible. And a lot of them, unfortunately, are just kind of in it to make a quick buck. And you need to really understand that, and to take what they say to you with a pinch of salt and almost look at it from that lens. So the lies candidates keep believing, and a lot of these lies are what's actually holding you back just mentally. So there's nothing out there now. This isn't 100% down to recruiters. This is down to the echo chamber as well of LinkedIn, where a lot of the times you'll see posts where it says, oh, the job market is just finished, or oh, job seekers are absolutely going through it. And what you need to understand with LinkedIn and social media in general is that negative content tends to do better than positive content, because with negative content, it elicits really visceral emotions, and content that elicits visceral, stronger emotions are more likely to do well. And then that's going to give you this negative reinforcement where you kind of believe that because that's what's populating your algorithm, that's a reflection of reality, when not necessarily. So as I said, I'm working with candidates on a daily basis, and I'm seeing candidates land in interviews, six-figure roles quite frequently. So what I can tell you from my vantage point is that there are still a lot of opportunities. What I will say is it is more competitive than it was a few years ago, but all that means is that you have to do a little bit more than what you used to be able to get away with. But if you do everything correctly, you'll still be able to get a load of opportunities. You can kind of take my word on that. And then another one that people get told, which is actually affects me on a personal level because it affects the relationships that I've got with prospects and clients. But it's your CV is great, it's just competitive. And the reason why this is bad, because it looks polite and nice on the surface, but the reason why this one is annoying is because it means that candidates end up thinking that their CV is good when it could be majorly improved. And then it essentially leads you to this false sense of security where you think, oh, your CV is perfect. And then even when I'm dealing with these same candidates and I'm telling them that their CVs could be improved, they'll kind of almost fight back on that just because they've been told so many times by so many recruiters that their CV is great, and they kind of take that they kind of take that seriously. They don't take it with a pinch of salt, which they should do. And because of that, it kind of creates blind spots in that application process where they think that things are good and they don't need to be optimized anymore. So this is another polite way of them just saying your CV doesn't stand out, and it's a polite way of them brushing you off without being rude or kind of leaving a sour taste in your mouth. But what you have to understand is, again, they don't really care about what you do outside of your interaction with them. Whether you get a job tomorrow or you're unemployed the next 2 years, they don't really care. They just want to fill their jobs as quickly as possible. And then line number 3 is we'll be in touch when something comes up. When recruiters tell you this, don't really take stock because they almost never will. It's just because they've got so many profiles in their system. Just to give you a bit of a reference point, so I'm on LinkedIn, and in my past experiences, it says I'm a recruiter. And then even I'm getting absolutely inundated with people just sending me their CVs, like without me even asking for it. They just send me their CVs because they think I'm a recruiter. So you can only imagine what an actual recruiter is going through right now. So it's like there's just too many profiles for you to realistically be able to expect them to come back to you, even if that's what they've said. I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you what actually works. So candidates who are landing offers right now, so they're not waiting around for recruiters to call. They're positioning their CVs for specific roles. This is very important. You can't just send one generic version everywhere. You have to tailor your CVs for each application. Very important. I actually tried this as a fun, wacky experiment last year. And then I think I got one interview out of 100 applications. It was something along those lines. I had the spreadsheet somewhere. But I did like one application out of 100. I got one interview out of 100 applications doing this, just sending a generic CV. It doesn't work anymore. It's been patched. And then the second thing is that they're applying strategically with volume and targeting, not just hitting easy apply on LinkedIn and hoping. Very important that you get the targeting correct. So what a lot of people will do is, for example, if you're a backend engineer, what you might do is you might just search backend engineer and just apply to all the backend engineer roles that you find. I mean, it could work, but not very efficient. So what you need to do, the thing that's more efficient is getting absolute niche targeting down. So this means looking at past problems that you've solved in your CV. You look at industries that you look at the industries that your previous companies were in, and then you essentially want to find jobs and companies that match what you've already done as closely as possible. So for example, to give you a clear example, I'm currently working with a data scientist. And then what he was doing before was just applying to like a load of data scientist roles. But then what we found is that he was getting a much higher response rate when he was applying for roles that were in the intersection of data science and marketing. So that's essentially basically using data science to improve marketing efforts and marketing campaigns. So that's why now we just kind of apply to roles that are in that intersection because he gets a much higher hit rate. If he just goes and does data scientist, he's not going to get as many results. So just bear that in mind. So just to give you a little bit of optimism. So I worked with someone recently, a couple of weeks ago. They've been waiting for recruiters for months. They got nowhere. We changed the approach. We targeted the right roles, positioned the CV properly. Then we actually had a structured application strategy and application campaign, and they were able to land a 6-figure director level role. I said 6-figure. I mean, it was £95,000, €95,000, but I mean, close enough within a few weeks. So, I mean, that's what's possible for you if you kind of do all of these things correctly. You absolutely can still get results as of 2026. So what I'm going to say is I'll leave it there. And if you do want guaranteed interviews, I'm actually going to leave a link in the description, and then you can kind of click that link, and that will essentially be a way to work with me one-on-one and get guaranteed interviews and job offers. And yeah, otherwise I'm going to leave it there. Best of luck with your job search, and stay in tune for the next video.